Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Welcome to the first of the month mailbag, and welcome to our first ever live episode of Art Ed Radio. Yep. Thank you. We are at IAEA, the Illinois Art Educators Association Conference. They invited us to come do a live podcast, which we are so excited. For those of you listening who don't know me, my name is Tim Bogatz. I'll introduce myself in a second, but I need to also tell you that with me is Amanda Heyn. Amanda, how are you?
I'm so excited. We've been doing the mailbag for over a year now, and it is very exciting to be in front of a live audience answering live questions. It's just going to be so much fun.
Yeah, we're in very, very good shape. Like I said, my name is Tim Bogatz. For people listening who don't know me, I'm a podcast host. I'm the director of the Art Ed Now Conference, short-time elementary art teacher, long-time secondary art teacher, and been working at the Art of Ed full-time for quite a while now. So, Amanda, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am the director of community engagement. I was an elementary art teacher to start, and I've been at AOE for a long time and oversee lots of things, including our new exciting community.
And like we said, we're super excited to be with the live audience. So can I ask you all one more time to give us a good round of applause? What's exciting?
You are all really nailing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is so exciting. So as I've mentioned, we have our Art of Ed community. We have just crossed 8,000 members in the Art of Ed community. Oh my gosh. And it's so fun to be here in person. So during this next hour, we'll be discussing some of our favorite topics, including the importance of community, maximizing your conference experiences, and of course, answering questions from the mailbag.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on. So yeah, let's start there. Since we are excited about the community, since we are part of an in-person community here in Illinois right now. Let's start with that. So, Amanda, let me ask you to start things off. Like, why do you think it's so important for us as art teachers to develop and to foster that sense of community?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone here has noticed, but the world is kind of a lot right now. I just, there's a lot of things going on, and being a teacher is always a rewarding yet difficult profession, but even more so right now. And so I really think having a supportive community can make all the difference, especially in this sort of like ever-changing landscape of education. Science shows that having a community can reduce your sense of loneliness, it can boost your mental health, it can boost your physical well-being. It can really provide that really critical sense of belonging. And one thing that we always hear in the community is, I've found my people. People are just, they come in and it's people who get you, right? And that's so important to see your experiences reflected back and to really understand that you are not alone. Other people's kids are running out of their rooms. Other people's kids are, having a tough time and they're having to problem solve on the fly. And that's not something that is just happening in your isolated classroom. It's really a universal experience. And then the power of the community is you can come together and you can really talk about that and problem solve and just have a listening ear. And so I think it's really critical, especially for art educators.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, like you said, especially for art educators, we have kind of a unique position. I would maybe even say an isolated position. Like so many art teachers are alone in their school or very few teachers in the district. And it can be really difficult and really isolating. And you don't have that community that the grade level teachers have, that the science department has. And so it can be difficult to find that. And so I think it's worth developing. It's worth kind of finding that community in order to fight that isolation, to fight that loneliness, like you mentioned. I think that's huge. And there's so many benefits to doing that. Just the feeling that you have when you're able to help someone else out, whether it be ideas, suggestions, strategies, being able to help other teachers is worthwhile. It feels good, like we're in good shape when we can do that. And a lot of times you need to be on the receiving end of that too. You may need help. You may need suggestions. You may need strategies. And if you have a place to go, if you have people that you can go to, then I think that's really, really worthwhile. And when we all do that, when we all share those best practices, I think we can do a lot to sort of elevate art education as a whole. If we're all helping each other, if we're building each other up, I think that we can do a lot of good things with that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We see that reflected in the community all the time. You'll see somebody post one day and be like, I'm really struggling with this, and people rush in to help. And then it's somebody else the next day, and that same person is then offering their support or their suggestions. And so I think that's important to recognize that it can feel good to be part of a community on the receiving end of help, but also on the giving end of help.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk more specifically, I guess. What strategies have you seen, or what strategies do you think are really effective when we're trying to build community, when we're trying to help each other, when we're coming together as art teachers? What are the specific strategies that you think are worth pursuing?
So I think there's kind of a few different categories, right? Of course, online, we have social media, which again can be sort of a dumpster fire. We like to proclaim ourselves as like a dumpster fire free zone. Would you say, Jen? Or like bring your dumpster fire, but the community itself is not a dumpster fire. Yes. So obviously you can find community online, and often we have to, right? Because we don't always get a chance to sit in this room together, but it is exciting when you do get to. And so thank you for being here. It's hard to step away from your classroom. It's hard to give up your free time if this would be a day off for you or an afternoon off for you. There's a sentiment, I feel like, that's going around right now, which says something to the effect of the price of community is inconvenience. And I think that's really true. There are times when, I have committed to something with a friend and it's like, oh my God, now I have to get out of my pajamas and I have to go and, I have to deal with my kids being sad that I'm late. But it's like, no, you really have to make time to do that. You have to inconvenience yourself if you want to then have a community to depend on, if you want to build that community up. So thanks for being here. This is really exciting. And events are just another way to come together. In the community, we also do have online events, but they are live. So you can come and chat with other art teachers. So we have Art Club, which is once a month where we learn from an expert, create a little bit of art. We also have a pop-up studio, which is just come hang out, make art, share what you're doing. And those have been a really wonderful way to meet people and get to know them. And it's fun to see some community members who we see online in this room right now. Of course, at school, you have your department meetings, your committees. I would encourage people to do classroom visits. This is something I loved to do when I was in the classroom. Just get out of your classroom for a day. I know that's not always possible. I know it takes admin support, but if you can advocate at least once a year to go visit another teacher, that can be a really fun way to build community. And then, of course, out of school, you have your book clubs, you have your dinner, like go to a museum. Again, inconvenience yourself because it will be really worthwhile once you are out and doing something fun, I think.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think it takes some effort to nurture those relationships, to nurture that community. And sometimes you have to talk yourself into it. You have to say, this may not be what I feel like doing right now, but it's going to be worth doing. Mm-hmm. And as much as I don't want to do stuff as an introvert.
Right, like Tim and I, surprise, we are both very introverted. Like it takes a lot for us to come and but it's always so fulfilling.
I was going to say, I rarely regret doing things once I go do it. And I need to remind myself of that. And I think, like I said, you just have to talk yourself into it and you have to know that it'll be worthwhile. And I think that's going to be exactly the mindset you need to continue to develop that community. Okay, but like you said, we're super excited to be here in person with a crowd, with a lot of like-minded individuals, a lot of art teachers. So, what are some of the benefits you see when you're connecting with people in person? Not just the online events, which are great, but when you actually have the chance to meet in person, what are you looking for? What do you think comes out of that?
Yeah, I think there's just a different energy of being in person. You can text with someone all you want, or you can, send each other Instagram memes. And those are great ways to build community and build friendships. But there's something really special that happens when you're actually in the same place. And I think the in-between times are the best times for me at an in-person conference. The dinners or the catching up in the hallway between sessions or the work time in a session. Like all of those times where you get to sort of go off script are the parts that I like the best, and the parts where I find that's when the inside jokes develop, and that's when you can really connect really deeply. And so those are the times and places I look to connect with people.
Absolutely. I would say the same thing. When you can sort of let your guard down, you don't have to be learning all the time. You don't have to be, networking all the time. You can just sit and enjoy each other's company. And the more chances you get to do that, then I think the better you're going to feel about that. But I also wanted to ask you about just strategies, I guess, for attending the conference. Obviously, you've done a ton of in-person conference. We do the online conference multiple times each year. So I guess I'd love to get ideas from you as far as how do you approach that conference? How do you get things out of that?
So you're asking me
I'm asking you a lot of things all at once, but...
Okay. I think I understand. Like, what is something I've learned at a conference that I've taken with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for being succinct.
You're welcome. So I think Janet is stuck in traffic, but I think she's coming. Oh my gosh, she might be outside because I'm about to talk about Janet, because my strategy that I remember is I met Janet Taylor. If you don't know Janet, she's amazing. She also works for AOE. And the reason she works for AOE is because we were out scouting at NAEA and I went to her presentation. This is something that's really stuck with me, just how creative you can be in your lesson planning. I think there was something in Janet's presentation about creating an artwork with grass seed and just non-traditional materials and just really pushing the boundaries of what an art lesson can be. And so that's something that I've continued to sort of like use as a lens when we're developing content or thinking about like the Now conference, like how can we really push those ideas even further? So
yeah, I think that's really good. And I love just anything you can take away that helps you on a day-to-day basis. Just those little things that work because you're seeing people share them. Like, this works in my classroom. The idea is effective. The strategy works with students. Being able to take those away is always worthwhile. But yeah, I love when you go to a presentation and just like the light bulb goes off. You're like, oh, that's how it's done. Like, for me, this was a long, long time ago, back when, I don't know if any of you teach AP, but back with the old portfolio, back in the day, I went to a presentation. They just showed some of their works, and they're like, oh, they're looking for these 3 things, in the rubric, and this one lesson shows it. And rather than, an individual artwork for every part of the rubric, one artwork can fulfill so many different things for that. And I was like, oh, we can do it that way. And it really kind of changed how I approach things. But anytime you can get one of those ideas that really sort of shifts how you think about things, then I think you walk away with great ideas, but also a great feeling of, this is worth coming to. Okay, and then I guess the other thing that I'm thinking about or curious about, we come to these things, they're so exciting, there's so much positive energy when we're doing that. How do you bottle that up? How do you take that away? Like, how does the energy, how does the motivation keep going when you're done? Like, how do you actually take all of these ideas from a 2 or 3 day conference and actually put them into practice? Right.
I don't know if you're like me, but every time I leave an event, I have a literal notebook full of things, and then I get back to my classroom and I don't do any of them. I'm like very excited about them at the event and, I could try this and I could do this, but there's never enough time to actually implement. And I think that's actually something missing from a lot of conferences, is that time to actually implement your new learning. So I like to keep an ideas and I just add to it after each session. And I really try to be judicious and think about, is this something I can appreciate, or is this something I actually want to do in my classroom? And if it's something I actually want to do in my classroom, it goes on a separate list than my appreciation notes. And that way, when I get back to my classroom, it's a very curated list. And I also try to think about what is going to actually make the most impact in my classroom. Yes, sure, I could try 17 new ceramics lessons that I learned about in like a power hour situation, but maybe I don't need to. Maybe my ceramics lessons are actually great, and what I actually need to do is spend my time implementing the new classroom management lesson. So anyway, that is one idea. And then I also like to block an actual time on my calendar after the conference. It can be even just an hour, but taking that list then and breaking it into, okay, I'm going to try this in quarter 3, right? Or I'm going to try this idea next week and putting it on the calendar and just giving some time to actually implement those and blocking that off for myself can be really helpful and also help hold me accountable to actually doing those things. Because yes, it's great to come and hang out, but if we're not taking the new learning back, then a piece of that experience is missing, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I like the accountability idea. I think you need some kind of a plan to take all these ideas when you're going to take them back to your classroom, how you're going to implement them. For me, I always like to do a short-term, medium-term, long-term plan. And so I'll go through my curated list, if you will, of all the ideas. And like, hey, what's one thing I can do this week? Like, what's a simple idea I can do this week in my classroom? And then I maybe find a second idea or two that I will do before the end of the month. And then I find a couple big ideas that I want to try before the end of the school year. And, that's obviously not making effective use of all the ideas I have, but at least gets you started and at least lets you try out some of the different things that you are bringing back. And I think it's also important to give yourself permission to just kind of experiment with new ideas too, because, we're learning from all of you that have put all these ideas together. They've been going on in your classroom for years probably, and I'm going back and trying them for the first time. It's not going to be quite as smooth, and so you have to allow yourself some grace to learn, to experiment, and to get it right. It's not all going to just magically to work for you. So.
Yeah, sometimes I think it could be really intimidating to come to a conference and you go to these sessions and these teachers are doing these incredible things, but you have to remember sometimes they've been doing that for 10 years. And so what is one idea or one little nugget that you can take back and maybe plant the seed in your classroom? You don't need to do everything all at once.
Absolutely. Okay, are we ready to shift into our very exciting mailbag?
Yes.
All right, can you officially give us the mailbag intro?
Yes, let's go ahead and open up the mailbag.
Our first question comes from Annette, and we're starting off with a hard-hitting one, everyone. What is your favorite chocolate or candy?
Okay, this is the journalism that we all need. How much time do you have? What isn't my favorite type of candy, I think, is the better question. This is a great question for this time of year. I guess if you're asking what I'm going to be stealing out of my children's Halloween bucket is a Snickers, of course, but also $100,000. And I'm kind of old. I really love a Baby Ruth. And there have been a distinct lack of Baby Ruths in the Halloween candy over the last 3 years. It's been on a steady decline. We got one last year. So PSA, if anyone's listening, please buy Baby Ruths. Oh, I'm getting thumbs down from the audience over here.
Okay, as you were talking,
booze.
As you were talking, I was looking, and half the people, you said Baby Ruth, and half the people are like shaking their head yes. But the people who were not doing that, the look of disgust on their faces.
I like a nougat. What can I say?
So,
Skittles? Is the Skittles a crowd
Skittles
favorite?
are good.
Rainbow? Taste the Rainbow. I feel like very on brand for an art teacher. Maybe I can redeem myself. I also like Skittles.
That's fair. Okay, so you mentioned being old, and it makes me realize that the older I get, I'm mid-40s now, the older I get, the darker I want my chocolate to be.
Heck yeah, give me 80%.
Right? And so like 5 years ago, it was definitely not like that, but now I want the darkest chocolate I can get. If you can add some sea salt to it, that's going to make me happy, but... All right.
Okay, you're doing better on this question than I am.
Crowd likes my candy selections better. I don't know. But I'll eat just about everything. I love gummy candies, like gummy bears, Swedish fish. Like I will take those. My wife and I argue about this all the time. She thinks peanut butter M&Ms are the perfect candy. I think peanut M&Ms are the perfect candy. So
we're getting
go
some
wrong with those. So.
Mixed reviews on that.
No, that's fair. I mean, everybody has strong opinions on it. This is why this is such a good question.
That's right. Well, we can continue this in the community. If you have strong opinions you want to share, Jen, can you make a post about what people's... Great. Jen's on it. Yep.
I was going to say, this is going to be a much longer discussion. And I would just say, miss me with Smarties.
Oh, I love
Smarties are
Smarties.
gross.
Oh, I love Smarties.
Any like blow pops, lollipops, like
Yeah.
I'm not with those anymore. And then I hope this is not controversial, but Whoppers, malted milk balls, the worst candy in existence. Fair. All right. Well, as soon as we're done recording, we know what the rest of the conversation
That's
is
right.
going to be tonight. Question number 2. This is from Julie. We're getting into serious art teaching now.
Yeah.
All right, when I'm exploring new art units or themes, how do you avoid falling down the internet rabbit hole? I suffer from analysis paralysis. That's great.
Okay.
That's so easy to do. You start looking at things, you're like, that's really cool. That's also really cool. That's also really cool. And all of a
Right.
sudden, like 2 hours are gone. So how do you avoid that?
I mean, well, I don't, but if I'm trying, here's the thing. Pinterest is infinite. Like there's not an end. And so I really feel this question deeply. In fact, I was trying to do something very simple. The other day, I got it in my head. I've been married for 17 years this November, and we've had the same silverware organizer for the entire time. And it was disgusting because we bought it when we were children. And not that I was a child, right? This is sounding bad. I was 23, but still very young. Okay. So I was like, I'm going to get a new silverware organizer. And I spent 1 hour on the internet because do you know how many kinds of silverware you can get? Stainless steel, and you can get bamboo, and you can get expandable ones. You can get silicone ones. You can get plastic ones. And I just turned the computer off in frustration. And there are so many kinds of everything. And then when you're trying to think about like lesson planning and what is going to come into your classroom and all the different ideas, and now everybody's sharing online, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but everybody is sharing online. And so everything is online. So, okay, I'm done ranting. So what do you do? Here's what I would do. I sometimes like to arm myself with a very intentional search. So write down what exactly am I looking for, and then just stop when you found it. Maybe there are 6,000 more color wheel lessons that you could teach, but have you found one that you like? Maybe just stop.
That's fair.
Because you already found it. And I kind of going back to what I said before, you can appreciate things on the internet without having to do them. And so you don't have to write down 500 ideas. Maybe you just need 5. So be very discerning when you are looking at the internet and think about what you actually need. And then just shut the computer when you found it. Is my best
great
advice.
No, I think that's great advice. And actually, I think my takeaway from tonight is going to be you can appreciate things without having to do those things. And I think that's a good lesson. But yeah, my advice is very similar. Just set a time frame. I have half an hour to look for things, or I'm going to use the rest of my plan period and then I'm done.
Use that visual timer. How many of you have the time timer with the red? That can work for you too.
Good.
I also would be remiss not to mention AOE's Flex curriculum.
Yes.
I mean, that is, we do need to say that's highly curated and lots of good things in there.
Great place to search all the resources you need. Makes life easy.
True.
So that's good. Being intentional, putting some thought or planning, like I'm specifically looking for these things. And, I don't know how much time people want to put into these things, but when I was doing a grad course from AOEU, I was doing designing your art curriculum, and it was super helpful to lay out all of my lessons, all of my curriculum, and then you can see exactly what you're looking for. Like, oh, I need this lesson to follow up contour drawing, and then you specifically know this is what I'm looking for. Or later in the semester, I want to do these 2 things, and you know exactly what you're looking for. So.
Also, it's okay not to reinvent the wheel if you have a color wheel lesson that's working, you actually don't need to search for 20 more because you already have one.
That's true. That's true. Although I will say, like, as a teacher, I'm looking for new things. Like, I always want to make it more exciting, not necessarily for my kids, just for myself.
Fair.
Because, you get bored teaching that same color wheel lesson over and over. But again, like, it doesn't have to be a huge time suck for you if you decide you want to change that. Question number 3, this comes from Kelly. Kelly says, how do you create meaningful lessons when you have less than 40 minutes every other day to see your middle school students?
Oh.
Well, and I think that relates to elementary kids that you're seeing once a week.
Yeah.
Or, kids that you see for just a quarter. Like, how do you make it meaningful for them?
Totally. Well, I have a couple thoughts. First is just being in your room is meaningful. they are having a meaningful experience just by coming to experience art from you, no matter what content you're teaching. How you make your kids feel in your classroom, I think, is what makes it meaningful for them to be there. I think accepting your limitations is part of this. You can only work with what you have, and that's okay. It's okay if you only see them once a week, or once a quarter, I would actually say is not okay. That is, that's bad.
Not the best.
But that's what you had, right? And so you're going to make sure those kids have a really great time when they're in your classroom. I think also thinking about your definition of meaningful is helpful here. So not every project has to hit a ton of ideas. So I think I would think about, I will feel good about this lesson if my students blank, right? If they have fun, if they experiment with a new material. It could be something such as if they learn how to draw in perspective, right? But it also doesn't have to be the outcome of every lesson to get the technical skill down. They can be learning other skills or soft skills or however you want to put that in your classroom, and that can also be a meaningful experience. I think if you're looking about how to approach it and making sure sort of you're getting the most out of your time with them, I would break the lesson into specific sections. This might make your lesson take a little bit longer, but it might get at more of that feeling that you're trying to capture of like making it worthwhile or making it meaningful. So maybe you have a day that's an intro and sketching, and then you have 3 work days, and then you have a catch-up day and a closing activity, right? Kind of stretching it a little bit.
Yeah, but that makes it feel more substantive.
Right. Yeah. You can also, I think we're talking about limitations here, whether that's 40 minutes or, whatever time frame you have. Also think about changing the scale. I think that a lot of teachers think you have to do these big, grand projects, and really they might get something very meaningful out of a short 1-day lesson that's on a 6x9 sheet of paper and learn the same skill that they would by doing a finished artwork. So that's another thing I would kind of play with.
Yeah, I think those are all great ideas. I wanted to shout out Jen Lieben once again, because as soon as I read this question, I thought back a couple months ago, we did a hot takes episode.
So fun.
And Jen's hot take was that in middle school, I'm paraphrasing, in middle school, the skills don't matter. Okay. It doesn't matter what you teach. It just matters that you are teaching. Like you said, it's meaningful for those kids to come into the art room. It's meaningful for them to spend time learning about art, enjoying themselves, enjoying you as a teacher, and just enjoying that classroom.
And enjoying school. Like
yes.
They're coming to school and they're having a great time. That is meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they leave, your classroom with, a great grasp of value and shading and how to work with different line weights, okay, cool. Okay, but if they leave your class going, I love art, I feel like that's a much more important lesson.
Totally.
Okay, question number 4, also from Kelly, but a different Kelly.
A different Kelly.
Kelly number 2. Kelly says, I need advice on how to get my middle school students to come up with their own ideas. They want me to tell them what they should do, or they ask their peers for ideas on what they should do when I give them a choice. I want them to choose things that are meaningful to them. Brainstorming is very difficult for them. Why?
Great question. Tim, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah. Why can middle schoolers not come up with ideas?
I think it's like kids in general. I don't even know if I saw a lot of heads nodding along to that question.
Well, and I don't want this to devolve into kids these days, but I think for middle schoolers, it's a lot about confidence. Okay? Just life in general, when you're 13 years old, like it's tough to be confident about things. It's intimidating, it's risky, it's difficult to take chances when there's not a clear answer. If your teacher's opening up everything to you, it's really, really tough to kind of put yourself out there. Like I said, especially when you're in middle school, when you're in that age, because high schoolers are the same way. And, if you rewind 3 or 4 years, it's even more difficult. But that idea of brainstorming, of skill development, like, just like anything else, that's something that takes repetition, it takes practice, it takes guidance. From us as teachers, we need to show them how to develop those ideas, how to make those choices, how to bring their ideas in, and how to translate them into artwork. And, it's really tough. That was a mistake I made as a new teacher. Like, hey, your choice, do what you want. And then I'm like, why are these so terrible? You need to give them some guidance. You need to scaffold it for them and show them how it's done. And, I don't think in middle school you can just say, hey, go do your thing. You need to give them some limited choices. You need to structure it for them so they feel safe in taking those risks. And when they do take those risks, celebrate that. Like, celebrate that experimentation, celebrate the fact that they're trying something new, and just let them know that the art room is where you can do that. The art room is the place to try new things, to explore ideas, to put yourself out there, and just let them know that this is the place to do it.
Yeah, I think it's so important because the peer relationships are so intense at that age, and they are really afraid of getting something wrong or looking silly or looking stupid, and they don't want to take a risk even at especially at the brainstorming stage, because if you really think about it, to us brainstorming is low pressure. It's like, all ideas are fine, these are great, but to middle schoolers, that is creativity. Brainstorming is creativity, and that is a higher order thinking skill. And so I think you really need to scaffold that, just like you do with any skill in the classroom. So maybe that looks like generating a list as a whole class and then letting them choose something off of that list, or doing partner brainstorming. So they're coming up and they can be silly and they can kind of push the boundaries with their partner, but they don't have a fear that it's only their idea. Then it takes the pressure off of it being just them. And I think it's okay to limit the amounts of choices and decisions, again, as you're scaffolding those skills, so that you can get them to a place where they do feel safe. But I think you have to build in those little increments of sort of letting go and letting them let go in a safe way.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's really well said. All right, that was our final mailbag question. So just want to say thank you all for coming. We covered a lot today. Obviously, the candy being the
number
most important.
one, yes.
Okay, but also just talking about motivation and creating meaningful lessons. And I think, just the idea of us all being here, the idea of building community, I think is the big takeaway, and just all the benefits that come from that. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, whenever they're listening to you, just kind of take a moment to think about like what you're doing right now to build community, what you could be doing in the future, and just the actions you can take to help build the community that you want to be a part of. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for giving us such great questions. Thank you for being a great audience. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. We'll see you all next month on the mailbag.
Art Ed Radio is produced by The Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. We obviously enjoyed our time at the IAEA conference, and as we talked about in the episode, it was amazing to see our online community come together in real life. And if you want to join the community, we would love to have you. You can visit community.theartofeducation.edu. It's also linked in the show notes. So come and find your people, as Amanda said. Come join the conversation. All of our great conversations about art education and about everything else. But we would love to have you. Come be part of the community that you want to see. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we will be back with you again next week.